That was a great session. Hard to follow, but we're gonna have a good time and get into a topic that is for the first time being discussed on stage. And I appreciate that we're actually able to be here. Aki Lee, VP Marketing and Sales at Crossings TV. Thank you for being here. Actually, why don't each and one of you just tell us what your organization does, what your business does in a sentence or two? Aki, why don't you start?
Okay, Crossings TV is a multi-Asian TV network. We're African-American owned, serving 7 different Asian languages to audience in 7 different markets across the US, and our footprint is growing as well. So we'll welcome everyone to come to talk to us, and we'll work out a business solution for you guys.
Great. More than 2 sentences, but that's okay. Eric?
First one.
ODK Media, so we represent On-Demand Korea, On-Demand China, and On-Demand Vietnam. We are a minority-owned business. Our service is available in North America, and love to work with any of the partners in here.
Fantastic. Teresa?
I'm Teresa Rai. I'm from Little Saigon TV, and we are pretty much a family-owned business that broadcasts in California, and we specialize in Vietnamese television in language, Vietnamese language.
Yeah, 2 brothers and you, right?
Yes, the 2 brothers and I, we partnership and create the program over 30 years.
Who runs it? You. That's okay. No response needed on that.
I don't want my brother beat me up.
Yeah. That's why they're not here. Genesee.
Thank you. I represent Asian Media Group. We're focused on scalable pan-Asian reach from a digital. We specialize in digital and CTV, online video, those kinds of platforms. And our heritage is in content creation, as we were Trans-Pacific, Face Magazine, and AGM, which are still covered in today's Asian American history textbooks across the country. So we're very proud of our heritage.
I am too, of all of yours. We're here at Growthfront. There's never been an API group that has been at any dash front. So, and you're here. What does that mean to you, and why is this the first ever that we're doing an API conversation at any dash front?
I mean, it's so exciting. It's amazing. Like, just to think that, like, this is like, D&I only became a thing 3 years ago, and before that we were fighting for a voice, like all of the diverse groups. And at this moment in time, I think it's a time that brands recognize that consumers align them a lot with the causes they support. And when you buy a brand, you are kind of aligning yourself with their messaging, and that opportunity to incorporate inclusion into those messages, while also like recognizing those segments as unique, but respectfully is, I think it's great. It's at the intersection of mutuality and growing investment, but also like respecting each other as individuals through that lens of culture.
Why? My question is, why is this the first time? What's happened?
You know that model minority myth? Like, we're quiet.
Never heard of it.
Oh.
No.
Okay, well, let me
I'm joking.
Yeah, just, we're seen as like quiet, like meek. I have to credit like a lot of Hispanic and Black-owned media because they are so vocal about the opportunity and that engagement. And I think with Asians, we get overlooked because it's easy to write off, hey, they're a smaller audience, despite the fact that our actual spending power is 1.3 trillion, which is just under African-American, spend per year and the highest per capita. So it's just easy to write them off as they're hard to do because of all the like different segmentations. And so we just kind of get forgotten about.
You mean the languages?
I think that's changing.
You mean
the language? Exactly, yeah.
The 100+ languages or so that you might, or 50+ languages you want to address.
Right.
I think it's interesting that we're now finally being recognized, the API community.
Sure.
When I joined ODK Media, it was right during the pandemic. And it was, nothing good came out of the pandemic, but with Asian hate, it brought attention to this audience. And I kind of feel like an ambulance chaser back then, but the phone was ringing, right? And then I think with the success of Parasite, Squid Games, K-drama, there's now a reason to celebrate this audience. And now if you look at the numbers from buying power to growth in the space, it should be part of every plan. There's still a whole lot of tire kicking going around. A lot of people just checking.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of hesitation in some of the bigger brands to fully engage with the audience.
Sure.
Thinking it's a language barrier. We know our audience is bilingual. We know this is Gen 2.5 at this point, right? So the audience is bilingual. Don't be afraid. Start spending the dollars. To our point in our discussion earlier, it's still 0.02, right?
Yeah, but quickly, I just want to call out, like, that's kind of like a more negative spin on, just like, we talking about, like, why aren't people focusing on Asian? But I want to, like, give props to, like, a couple of the brands here. They are invested in almost always-on efforts to reach Asian Americans and recognizing our identity as Asian-American. We are both. And the statistic is that, like, even if you're looking at Asians born here, like I was born here, but I never forget that I'm Asian. No one lets me forget it, So even among Gen Z, US born, over 50% consider themselves just as Asian as American. And so when you work with like platforms like this, it's just saying like, hey, we recognize you as having this like dual cultural identity. And I think that's just, it's incredibly powerful, as opposed to like, we're just trying to slip you in as a last minute afterthought. We're trying to access you potentially like through what limited inventory there is on any given exchange, which I know for Asian Reach, based on the study yesterday, you saw that in data sets, Asians are the least transparent. And actually the transparency and accuracy of data set targeting for Asians, it's the only segment where that accuracy went down year over year between 2021 and 2022 versus the other segments, yeah.
What do you think?
I think that speaking for Vietnamese population is a multi-generation in the household. So we serve as like a modern ambiculture for the language because, the family always respect the older. So anything that you related that passes on, the older always have a voice for it, and the younger will listen. So when you invest into the culture like that, you will have a lot of exposure, especially captive, market that gives you a lot of investment, but there's a return because there's a support from the younger generation as well.
Yeah, you're really talking about one eyeball is actually 20 eyeballs in some ways, as well as huge different generations. What do you think, Aki?
Well, thank you. I'm really proud of our industry. I think investing Asian is really not an easy task. So I applaud everyone for talking to us, for wanting to learn this segment.
Yeah.
A lot of us in the industry talk like me. We have an accent. And our language group that we're
A beautiful
representing,
accent.
oh, thank you.
Yes.
They also speak different languages. They have
Yes.
different cultural characteristics, and they have a different profile. So for you guys talking to us, because you recognize that this is a consumer segment that has so much power, so much potential,
Right.
And they have so much to spend, 1.3 trillion, and it's growing every day. But also this is kind of a disconnected marketplace as well. A lot of Asian media that they're not really familiar with each other, and with a lot of us, we don't have the luxury of having the measurement yet.
Yeah.
Nielsen, ComScore, all of those. So we're not really connected to the industry like a lot of
I know what you're
mainstream
talking
media.
about. Yeah, I know in networks when we're going through the ratings or target markets, it's sort of, you fall off the end of the earth once you hit Latino Hispanic. It's almost like you got this group, and then there's basically three groups, right? White, black, and Latino Hispanic. And unfortunately, then that pits groups against each other, which they should not be. They should not be. Everybody's important. You just mentioned something. And for those who aren't aware of this opportunity, give me the 30-second, you should know this about this area. For those who are kind of like considering it, you should know this about this API space. For the marketers that are considering it, what do you think, Aki? What would your 30 seconds of wisdom be?
Well, the 30-second wisdom being that we all exist in the market for a long time, and we have a dedicated clientele, and that means we deliver the results to them even without measurement. So we really appreciate that you work with us. I know it's diving to the deep end, but your investment in us is what helps us grow, help this market space grow. And there's a Chinese saying said, 水涨船高. When the water rises, all the boats rise. And working with one of us actually helped the whole industry to grow. I know it's over 30 seconds, I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's all
But
right. I'm
I
keeping
really
track
want
of
to
you,
call it
Aki.
to
I
that.
know this about you. All right, one of the questions is actually based and related to our conversation right now. Research is biased and transparency is low. What are some resources we can lean into to understand more on the Asian pop, right?
I think
Go ahead. 30
think-
seconds.
Okay, from our perspective, we actually are measured by all the legacy KPIs because we are a digital first sort of partner, and that's fine. You know, like you have to measure us by something, and that's fine. But in terms of leaning into insights, please like ask us. A lot of times we get asked for consultative ideas, and also our insights into response by vertical to different types of products or different types of messaging. And we have all that first party data. There isn't really another source that has that for Asian reach, especially segmented out by ethnicity, but we have that. So please ask us for that because we're happy to share, you know, obviously not proprietary, but just generally what has worked, what hasn't worked, considerations in executing in the space. And I don't really think there's...
Well, give me one number.
Yeah.
Give me one number from you're saying you have this,
Yeah.
this stuff. What is it that they should learn or know about if they're considering this space?
Yeah, so actually like, well, you know, you can always ask us for our benchmark performances, but we actually outperform general market benchmarks on all the campaigns that I've seen over the last 13
By
years.
how much?
It ranges between like 1.5% and up. So 1.5 is conservative. Typically it's like three times whatever the benchmark is. And I think that's why we
3x.
exist. 3x. 3 times, 300%.
Okay, stop there. You dropped the mic. Eric, what is it that we should learn in 30 seconds about this space?
Yeah, 88%. So it's growth since 2000, right? So it is one of the fastest growing populations. Our platform, our viewability is 95%. Our video completion rates are 95%. We have a highly engaged audience. They come back on a daily basis.
95%? Wow.
Yeah. So, and again, for our platform, On Demand Korea, it's our flagship platform. It is kind of the default setting on most Korean homes, right? That's where they go to get their daily content. And every day they come back for new content. And that's how they kind of engage with their culture. So our average session is roughly about an hour and 32 minutes per consumer. So they come, they're highly engaged, they watch the content, and they come back daily. So a very dedicated audience.
I have to ask the obvious question, Erica. You an Asian man?
I am not an Asian
Yeah?
man. I am
This
not.
must be very interesting to you as your
It's
marketer.
been great. It's been incredibly, I mean, the last 3 years and learning the audience and,
Yeah.
and learning actually how marketers kind of perceive it, right? Because it is US Hispanic,
Yeah.
African American,
And-
then way over here is AAPI.
Or
right?
if it's even there.
If it's there, it's 0.02. It's representative in the number.
I asked you this question not only because it's the obvious question, but number two is what are the cross learnings then, you not being of Asian descent, that you're bringing to this space when you were saying, we've got this supply for you? This is the intersectional message.
Right.
What is
Well,
that?
it performs. I mean, to Genesee's point there, it performs. It performs above traditional general market media. You know, when we were at the ANA and Mark Pritchard said it's no longer general marketing, it is multicultural
Yeah.
marketing. But we're not getting the dollars or not necessarily getting the attention, but if you actually invest in this audience, it performs, right? The numbers kind of speak for themselves.
Teresa, what's your 30-second lesson today?
If you invest into the in-language program and the content, and of course that we have trust in the community, and that's how your brand can carry and prospers from that investment. And as far as you know, that the Vietnamese is the 4th largest population in the United States for Asian, and it's over 200,000 businesses that can create over 22 billion of dollars. And there you go, it's a very affluent market. So your investment into the language for us is a very, very important. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So we got our 30-second lessons from all of our, a little bit more, but from all of our panelists. And I guess if I were to add one in, it is talk to them for a minute. You see them at these gatherings, come say hello. Hey, how are you? What do you do? Find out what is the business, what is the opportunity, and who knows what might branch from that, right? We got to start somewhere in business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
I
have
mean,
something to say, I can tell.
I always have something to say, so you
Okay,
gotta
all
like
right.
selectively point to me.
Okay,
Otherwise,
I got
yeah.
4 fingers, so you got something to say. All right. You know, one of the things about this particular space is, all right, well, too many languages, too many cultures I got to address. That's one part of it. That's half of it, right? The other half is, well, but they buy and act and function like whites do. So why do I need to address that? They're fine, right? Address those two dynamics for why it's sometimes difficult to approach the spaces you're in.
Yeah, I mean, I think marketers make it harder for themselves than it has to be. I mean, you can see like we are like mostly bilingual, and so it's not like you can't transact with an English creative on in-language content like it works. And actually, we've seen like 92% of the investment in the last year has been with English creative. And I mentioned our KPIs, it outperforms general market. So that's not really the issue from the language perspective. And the second part of that question was, can you remind me?
Well, there's two like, oh, I don't know if I should go to that market because number one, I've got 50 to 100 languages and cultures. The other side was the English one, which you just addressed, which they function like whites do, so that's fine.
No, so actually, like, yes, I mean, to some extent, but then we actually just ran a campaign recently and was told that we were a leader in lifting brand perception. And that's stellar, right? Because that creative was not necessarily specialized for Asians. I mean, it was inclusive, but not specialized for us. So maybe we function like whites and that we like to buy certain things, but if you're gonna invest in diverse-owned platforms, you're getting something that is harder to measure. You'd have to do like brand lift studies, but you're also getting kind of an extra added value, which is that impact on that deeper level of like cultural identity. And I think people forget that. Like none of us ever forget that we're Asian, or like you probably don't forget that you are a minority, right? We don't forget that. And so when we see a play that's another thing. It comes down to how brands transact. So programmatic reach versus direct reach, right? Like they're both great, but what you get with directly working with these platforms is that you show up to the audience as like it's intentional, right? Like you meant to be there, you're controlling the share of voice, you're engaging with these platforms, you're allowing them to reinvest in themselves and create that content that speaks to you as an Asian American or whatever. And so I think people just have to try it. So pick a few partners that you trust and then see what insights you can get from that and then scale up the opportunity, so.
Hey, Aki, what do you think about that? Oh, this and then that, right? They buy like whites, or that's an often, whether it's said out loud, I'm saying it out loud. With those two groups, like too many language cultures, or they function like whites do. What's your reaction?
I think it is pretty scary. If I'm not Asian American, I'm not in this industry, I look at these languages, I will be scared. I'm scared of doing something wrong and it just offend that group and trending the wrong way. But that's why we're here. We're experts in these places, and we know exactly what we're talking about, and we know whether or not your spot's gonna work, and if you wanna create something, we can make sure it's a cultural fit for our audience. So talk to us, and we'll address all the language for you. And on the other hand, I do wanna say Asians are Americans, so there are certain things that we do eat Pepsi chips, and we do drive Cadillac, and we have a lot of things that we do share with a common group. But it is 7% of the total population that you have the opportunity to create a deeper connection with if you play your cards right. And we're here to help you capture that.
Go for it.
To me, like, if you're already looking for a market, why not to look for a new user, a new consumer, right? We're all looking for a new market every day. And I think that for language, it shouldn't be a barrier. Honestly, in my office, I have a white guy do news every day with us. You know what he did? He used a Google and translate, and he worked on the news in the morning. It was amazing to see a white guy work in my office, right? So I say language shouldn't be a barrier, and we always be able to help you with language, of course, and the behavior of the consumer. So for us, if you want a new market coming in, we help.
Yeah.
We help, I think, is the key point you're making, Eric.
I mean, if you keep asking and keep scratching your head and waiting, you're not moving the ball forward.
Yeah.
Right? So engage. I mean, GM, Cadillac, Dentsu, and their whole team did a whole AAPI month sponsorship with us last year. And they went head forward. And they didn't care that it ran creative in English. We actually built a page for them that was in language as well as English. We curated content, and we brought the experience to the Cadillac consumer, to the Chevy consumer. We just launched a beautiful campaign for Cadillac today as well. And they're just forging ahead, right? Because
Cadillac is not a sponsor of this panel. I want to let everybody know.
And to Jessica's point, some of the brands are engaging, and they're trying to have meaningful conversation, and they're not letting language be the barrier.
Yeah.
Right?
So what you're both saying here, and I like this, is number one, you can help. Number two, it's not this, oh my gosh, that much of a barrier that you cannot overcome it if you're intent on getting to that market space. Great audience question. Brands are starting to make it mandatory to have MBE certification, Minority Business Enterprise certification. How do you get around this if you currently don't have certification? And why is it the API space, like all four of you, which you represent today, the certification isn't necessarily embraced as much by this particular segment?
Yeah. I mean, it actually hasn't been a barrier for us to getting business. We do get asked, but I kind
Are you
of
certified?
credit.
I should ask, are any of you at your company's MBE certified?
No.
We're
No?
not.
We're not.
We are.
We are.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So it hasn't been a barrier for us. We do get asked, but I give the teams credit for recognizing that the audience is still important and they trust us. Like, we're not going to lie about who owns us. I mean, I think there's a certain amount of integrity at play there. And the reason why is because it is quite an expensive and onerous process. And there are already these hurdles that we're coming up against. And from our perspective, we're trying to deliver the best value and also do something for the audience itself. And it wouldn't serve us because we haven't had to do it yet. So I actually credit the teams for not making it mandatory, but asking. I mean, it is important to invest in those platforms, yeah.
Yeah, I think that be certified is very important as well. It's just small company, we haven't get to that, and that costs as well. But I know that the certification will help, people in place so they don't take advantage of it, being minor. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why did your companies decide to become certified?
It opens doors.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the brands are going to push the agencies to spend money with either female-owned, minority-owned, and it's a starting point.
It's a way to find
Right?
you.
It's a way to open the door, and I'll take that all day long
Yeah.
if that's the option.
Aki, quickly?
Well, we think we just believe in minority ownership, and that's what our owner has been pushing. He started the company because he would like to give
Tell us
voice
about your
to the
owner.
voice. So Mr. Frank Washington, who cannot be here today, and I'm sitting in place of him, he started our TV station in Sacramento back in 2005, and we were a really small
Black-owned.
station, black-owned, and we're still black-owned. But Mr. Washington really has a vision of trying to reach the community that's hard to reach and try to provide them the comfort and home that they lack of. And the same things inside the company, we have extremely diverse team, and people speak a different language, come with a different cultural heritage, and we took ownership of our work. And same thing on the board level, that our board is really diverse as well. So we are diverse in terms of how we serve, and we're diverse in terms of how we think and all the strategies we're making. So I would just say diversity is not a box to check, it's a mindset. I forgot who said it on the stage, but I really like this sentence, and that will be my wisdom of the day.
Okay, you got more wisdom than that, I hope. But that's a good one. That's a good one. You got more to drop in our remaining 10 minutes. That's a fantastic one. One of the questions was, give us a research source. For all of you looking at your devices, they're typing it in right now. Where should they go to get information about this space? That was one of the questions asked. Some resources they can lean into to understand more on this space. Is there your quick link? Where should I go?
I mean, I would say come to us, Asia
Go to you.
Media.
Outside
Yeah,
of you,
but,
where else is there?
Oh, well, the data, unfortunately, it isn't segmented out by ethnic segment, but Nielsen does some studies on different purchasing habits and psychographic things with Asian Americans.
So Nielsen is is your go-to.
Yeah.
Any other go-tos for the three of you?
We have several documents of publications. Honestly, H Code is here, but A Code actually, and they're a competitor of ours, but they actually came out with a document June of 2022 that's awesome. Has a ton of great data. And I'll hand it out. It's competitive, but it's not competitive. It's highlighting the
Good for
audience.
everybody.
Good for everybody, 100%.
Yeah. Two of you, any go-tos?
I still use some of the Census 2020.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's very helpful
Yeah.
as well.
The business report, yep.
Yep.
Yep. Well, we use Nielsen a lot, and we have a lot of internal research, different reports. But the first step always start small. Use census, put out your phone, and you can see the data. You can see the population, the language characteristics, the economics. You get everything to start with.
What does the narrative need to be? Because it ain't working right now. You have high return, you spend a lot, all these sort of things that exist. But that narrative isn't working because you're at 0.2%. What's the new narrative need to be?
I mean, this isn't poetic or anything, but just pick a few partners you trust to and activate with them, trust them to give you those insights and build upon that. I mean, it's not a lot of money to invest and just see what the opportunity is and then build upon those insights. I feel like there's just, as Eric mentioned, there is a lot of like hemming and hawing over whether we should do this, how do we activate. And I mean, I really give credit. Again, there are several brands that have stepped up to the plate, and they work with us, they see the performance is great, and they just continue.
But I mean the
regardless.
narrative. Like, what is it that we need to be telling folks? Because the high return, high ROI, big spending, that ain't working.
Yeah.
That's not you're at 0.2, as I keep on going back to. What does the new narrative need to be about the API space? Any ideas?
Well, like 74% of Asian American adults were born overseas. So that tells you something about like their nativity and their cultural connection to those ethnic platforms. It might be, I mean, it is incredibly deep despite the fact that we're bilingual. Because a lot of times, like in Korea, for instance, you know, my mom told me like, you learn English, and she's like much older, but you learn English even back then from the age of like 3 or 4 in school. So just because you're bilingual doesn't mean you weren't born overseas or like have that connection to your cultural heritage that's that deep. So that's, I think, the power of being in cultural media.
Narratives. What does the new narrative need to be?
Engage.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, at the ANA Multicultural Conference, there really wasn't an Asian segment. So this is almost the first time we're actually on stage, and to your point, having this engage.
Engage.
Right.
Yeah, that conversation I was
afraid.
mentioning earlier, add that category to your list when you're discussing the data, right?
Right.
Go ahead.
I think you should support a lot of like a local organization or Asian that they have the same cost like you, so you can leverage to the trust to go into the community, because the community and organization in Asian are very tight knit. And once you can get to understand them and how they do the cultural behavior, then they will trust you to get in.
I would say love the problem, not the solution. I know it is a little intimidating to get into Asian space, but hey, if it's easy, everybody's gonna do that. So this is where you really stands out. And just a backstage secret, once you start working with us, it's really not that hard.
I can tell I'm in the advertising space. What's the number you watch? What's the number you watch? What's an important number to you? 15 seconds each. What's the number you watch, Teresa?
The number increase in investment for us that will show that there's a move of the needle in the market.
That's the number you watch.
Yep.
What's the number you watch, Aki?
1.3 trillion. This is a market that if you don't capture, you could be missing it.
0.02. Right? How do we get more of that share?
What's the number you watch?
Our growth year over year, which has been between 200 and 300% for the last couple of years. So again, I credit brands for doing that. Yeah.
A-Code is releasing, by the way, the 2023 version of the Fact Pack. Thank you, A-Code, who's here. I guess they're putting in this comment. Thanks for the call out to you, Eric. What do you guys feel? What do you, ladies and gentlemen, feel is the lesser unknown fact about the API community? 30 seconds. What's that fact that people don't know? Like, gee whiz, that's kind of...
Can I say first? Well, they always say the good thing comes from a small package, and that's us. And we have very affluent, and we are actually very community-oriented. So just coming in and working with us, and you will see the market open for you when you're working with us.
Eric.
Yeah, engagement and loyalty. It's at a very highly
Loyalty.
engaged- Yeah, loyalty. I mean, our consumers come back daily, right? Now, granted, we're adding new content on a daily basis, but there's reason to engage. This is, they love their community, they love their content.
Yeah, repeat. What's that one fact? You're 2 to 300, is that what it was?
I feel like I said a lot of fact. No, that's
Okay.
just about us, but about the market itself. It's that even when you're born here, like even among US born, like majority consider themselves just as Asian as American. So that's a way to connect.
I feel like I want to answer to your question more straightforward, but everybody's kind of talking about
No,
the
give me a
industry
number.
itself.
Yeah, that's
so
okay. Lesser
I
known
do want
fact.
to answer the question. A lesser known fact about API community is that fortune cookie was not invented in China. It was invented in Chinatown in San Francisco.
I thought more in Japan.
It was actually, I'm from San Francisco, it was actually invented in Japantown.
Yeah.
Oh, Japantown.
in Golden Gate Park.
Yeah.
Another less known fact.
Yes.
But yeah, I went to the first shop. It was really amazing.
Are you trying to outdo my fortune cookie cred? Yeah.
Well, Asians are competitive.
Yeah, I know.
It's a more popular knowing fact. But yeah, I think with our industry, connection. We all want to be connected. I'm not only going to talk to the advertisers, agencies here. I'm going to talk to all the media vendors here. Try my best because we need to know each other, to understand the space, and I would like us to all chip in and help elevate this marketplace.
So all of you know I'm a journalist. I was talking to my friends over at the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. They're allowing you to have a front page article, each and every one of you. What's that headline? What's the headline? They said, yeah, we'll do it for you. They're like, well, we love all four of you. What's that headline? Who wants to go first?
Oh. Since it's the Wall Street Journal, I'd say like 10% of all employee businesses are owned by Asian Americans, which is like an over-index of 200%, which is
That's a long
staggering.
headline. All right, so it's actually,
Yeah, okay,
what
but
is the
that's the
actual
fact.
headline?
That's the fact. Asian American-owned businesses drive perception, cultural perception.
Okay.
Changes, yeah.
All right, and then the first line of the article will be what?
That was the byline. That they over-index, like that they over-index by like 200%.
Okay, what you said first was your first sentence. Okay,
Yeah.
who wants to go with the headline?
AAPI, engage, $1.3 trillion spending power.
Okay, that'll fit
All right.
maybe. What's the first line of the article?
Engage in the audience. Again, I'm going to keep saying engage. Spend time, spend money. Don't be afraid.
Cool, all right. Go ahead, Teresa.
It's a hard question.
I know you're squinting.
It's a
I told him that I was going to ask him this question too.
So,
It's okay, it's all good.
You can go first.
Oh, well, first, thank you for being so friendly with me, that always ask me last, give me more time to think. But I actually did want to, save Eric here earlier. So my headline will be, "This is Asian America." And with a smaller font text here being, Asian Americans are changing the face of America every day, in terms of economy, in terms of the culture, and every aspect of your life. You just don't know it yet, but
Okay.
don't miss the opportunity.
I got the headline in there somewhere.
Okay, invest in Asian American. That's where your return in investment.
Great. We're out of time, and I wanted to thank all four of you for this great conversation. Again, Asian challenges and opportunities here at AIM. Thank you so much.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank